All right.
How is everyone doing? Gage and I are here today to take all of your sit-start fantasy questions. Man, Gage, I'm so excited to be here today. I can't wait to start talking about football. I can't wait for Packers football. There's just so much to talk about.
Man, I am excited to be here. As I've said on the Pack a Day podcast basically every Saturday for the last 6 months, I am surprised for us to be here, but I'm glad the NFL has taken COVID head on. They've seemed to curb any of the issues that we may have. As of a few minutes ago, I saw that there was no positive COVID test this weekend. Everybody's good to go. So that's great to see. We won't have any issues of people not being on the field. So I'm excited to do this new venture with you.
Yeah, this is the first time for both of us. So please, if you have any comments or feedback, let us know. Get involved in the chat because that's what this show is going to be about. It's going to be about helping you, giving you guys advice for those who are watching us and need that advice. We have some talking points to go over today, but for the most part, we hope that we don't get to any of those and that we just have a ton of questions to get through. So let's get started, though, Gage. I mean, let's look at some of the news and notes from around the league. I think probably some of the bigger things is going to be the Mike Evans injury. So let's just start with that. What are you doing with Mike Evans this week?
Man, I don't want to play him if I don't have to. I've been getting that question all morning, and if I have a safer option, that's who I'm going with. I don't trust. It's a soft tissue injury. It's week 1. You don't want to see him aggravate that injury and then stretch it out into a longer, more permanent one. So if you have a safer option, especially in PPR formats, which is where Evans generally has lesser value, I would fade Evans if I can. If you probably invested a high pick in him and you might not have the depth to afford benching Evans. If you're lucky, maybe you have a couple of late receivers, like somebody in that Monday night game, like maybe you have Juju or maybe you have AJ Brown, maybe somebody like that if it's coming up on 4:00 and they're like, he's not going to go or he might not play today, then you can swap him out. But if you have early receivers and you have any qualms about him just playing one play, pulling a hammy and then being out, I would play him. I don't know about you, Tyler, but that's where I'm at with him today.
I think if you drafted Mike Evans, you probably are going to have to play him for the most part. I mean, maybe you were able to get a bunch of really good back-end wide receivers in the 6th, 7th, 8th rounds, and you feel comfortable sitting Mike Evans. I don't know if I feel comfortable sitting Mike Evans if I can play him. So I'm looking to play him, but I am very, very, very nervous. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on that injury report leading up to game time and see if anything changes. But I think the fact that he was upgraded from doubtful to questionable says everything we need to know about Mike Evans this week. So we are going to be going through a bunch of different topics today, hopefully taking your questions. When we start going through these things, we are going to play our rankings on the bottom. So feel free to kind of reference those throughout the show. There'll be quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, defenses, and kickers. And so hopefully those will answer some of your questions as well. But, ideally we are taking as many questions as possible from you guys. And we actually have our first question, Gage. So Hunter Henry or Jarwin this week?
It's Hunter Henry for me. I like Jarwin. I like his matchup this week because the Rams defense is Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, and a bunch of other pieces. I think Tyrod Taylor plays it safe. When he was in Buffalo, Charles Clay was consistently a thing. He wasn't ever a super high-end thing just because Buffalo didn't throw a ton, but he was a really safe option. Henry, same way, but he's a better player than Charles Clay is. He's a better athlete, especially with Mike Williams is playing through, I believe it's a AC sprain, if I remember correctly, shoulder injury. So Mike Williams is going to play, but I think Henry is going to receive more of a workload than he typically might. So that's where I'm going with these two.
I think it's got to be Henry as well, although I do like the upside of Jarwin this week. So if you're running like a 2 tight end league or a tight end premium and you really need that boom performance, I think Jarwin could be your guy. But Hunter Henry is going to be the safer play with a little bit less upside, but he's a safer play considering the injury to Mike Williams and how rookie quarterbacks or not even rookie quarterbacks if Herbert gets in, but Tyrod Taylor, he likes the tight ends too. He likes to throw it short, so he's going to keep it close to the chest with that. And so I expect Tyrod to be using Hunter Henry quite a bit this year. And so then a follow-up question actually is going to be Hunter Henry or TJ Hockenson.
It's still Henry for me. I actually got this question a little bit earlier this morning. I'm still going Henry. Hawk I like, especially with Kenny G out. But I'm going to go with Henry just because a lot of the same reasons I said with him. Plus, Bears defense is really good. They've kind of taken a step back under Pagano and losing some pieces, but I still think that the Bears defense is good enough to slow Hawkins down, especially considering they have Eddie Jackson, who's a really good cover safety. They have athletic linebackers. So Henry for me there.
I think I agree. TJ Hockenson had one, maybe 2 good performances last year. He struggled with injuries, and then Stafford went down. So we really didn't get to see what TJ Hockenson was about last year. There were some really bright flashes, but I don't know if we can trust him yet as a top tight end option. I think he's on his way. I just don't know if he's there yet. I think it's Hunter Henry there as well. So keep the questions coming because this is great. Hopefully we never get to our topics like I said. But next question, Packers D or Bears D?
I'm going to go Packers D here. I think the Lions have a decent offensive line. I think Matthew Stafford does a good job or good enough job of taking care of the ball. He's short his weapons today, but I think that they might limit the opportunities the Bears have. And on the flip side, I think the Packers defense is really good at generating pressure, especially against an overmatched Vikings offensive line. Until the Vikings prove otherwise, their offensive line is not very good. I think that they'll get after Kirk Cousins. He's not athletic enough to escape these athletes the Green Bay is throwing at him, especially with Rashawn Gary in the mix now. Like a 4-man lineup of Clark, Rashawn, and then the 2 Smiths. That's terrifying. And if I'm Kirk, I'm trying to get rid of the ball as quick as possible. I also think that they have really opportunistic corners. Jair he gets his hands on the ball a lot. He's going to come down with at least one, like a lot more interceptions than he's been getting. Kevin King, long, tall athlete. Really physical. I think that he can make a lot of plays on the ball. And then this Packers defense is better than it gets credit for when they generate pressure, which I think they'll be able to do today. So I think they'll get some sacks and I think they'll cause a turnover or 2. So that's where I'm at on these 2 defenses.
Yeah, I do think they're very close. It's a very interesting question. And so Packers defense or Bears defense, I think I'm going to lean Bears here, which is probably sacrilegious considering the platform that we're on right now. But I do believe that the Bears defense is going to be just as good as it was last year. They're bringing back most of their pieces, and they added Robert Quinn. They probably upgraded from Leonard Floyd there. And so with the banged-up Lions offense right now and the uncertainty at running back, I just don't know if this is the week that the Lions put it together offensively. I do like the Lions offense as a whole this year. I just don't know if this is the week to do it. So I think I'm leaning Bears there, even though I think the Packers is a fine play as well. Okay, so let's just quickly cover this one. What do you think about drafting a backup kicker? They said they have an extra kicker. Should they drop and pick up another running back or wide receiver? 100%, absolutely. Roster as many running backs and wide receivers as you can. Arguably, you only need one kicker for the entire season, and you can stream them. You can stream your starting kicker if you need to.
Yeah. No, I love kickers. For anybody that doesn't know, I write a kicker column every week over at rotoballer.com. And even I know you pick up one kicker at a time. Like you draft one at the end of your draft, it's your last pick, and then you just stream them as you go through. You never carry more than one kicker unless you got like a kicker premium league or something weird.
Well, if you're playing kicker premium, like let me in on that because it actually sounds like a blast. So
Yeah, no, give me a kicker premium league. I want punters. I want offensive linemen. Just nothing but like I don't want any regular fantasy positions. I just want to rock kicker premiums and punters all day.
All right, next question here. So in the flex, Sterling Shepard or Mark Ingram? I think I'm leaning Mark Ingram here.
Yeah, it's Mark Ingram for me. I think the Steelers are really good defense. I think they're going to regress from last year just because defense is really hard to replicate. But I still think if you can get a running back in there over especially because I don't think Daniel Jones is very good and I think he's going to struggle. I go with Ingram. I think he gives you a high floor. I think that he's going to run a lot today because the biggest weakness for Cleveland is their safeties and their linebacker play. So I think that Ingram is able to get the ball a lot. I think he's going to have a very solid day. He might not give you like 25 points like he might get with a higher end receiver or running back, but I think that he can give you a safe like 12 to 15, maybe 18, depending on how many touchdowns he gets.
Yeah, I don't think there's much to talk about here. Sterling Shepard he's going to be the wide receiver one in New York, but I just do not like that Giants offense at all this week against the Steelers. So I'm taking Ingram against the rather poor run defense of the Cleveland Browns. So okay. Wow, we're getting more questions. I love how active the chat is, guys. Keep it coming. So is there any reason to roster one of Green Bay's other wide receivers outside of Adams?
We've talked about this on, a couple podcasts ago, like for Pack a Day, about like which receivers are worth rostering. And like Alan Lazard, I like if you're gonna roster a second one, I think he's the clear number 2. And then after that, it kind of gets interesting, like between MVS and EQ. EQ, I think, is more PPR friendly, and MVS is more like standard or half PPR friendly, just because I think he's a more big play receiver. I don't really like rostering either one of those unless you're in like really deep leagues. Like I think if you're getting to 14 teams, then I might consider those two. But Lazard, I think, needs to be rostered in 12 or less. Like, I don't know about you, but if you're in 12-team leagues, Lazard is almost a must roster for me.
I think it's close between Lazard and MVS because I think those are the two guys that are going to have the most opportunities to produce as a wide receiver 2 on this team. I think MVS is a fine add in deeper leagues where you can just throw him into the bench, or throw him on your bench and then throw him into the back end of your starting lineup if you need to. Excuse me. So Mamba and Tanyan. So Robert Tanyan is the tight end to own in this group for now, but Lazard, it really is tough because we just don't know what the offense is going to look like yet. I've already said that I think there's going to be a reduction in the passing volume that this offense has this year, and so that could really affect that as well. But Aaron Rodgers typically does support 2 viable options at wide receiver. So I think Lazard is the way to go, but I don't think you're wrong for rostering MVS either. All right, Rashad Perriman or Justin Jefferson?
Justin Jefferson. That's easy for me. Like, Rashad Perriman has had like 3 games of production. It came when Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were both injured. I don't have any faith in Sam Darnold. Actually, let me rephrase that. I don't have any faith in Adam Gase because he's a bad coach and shouldn't be the head coach. Justin Jefferson's the clear number 2 with Stephon Diggs gone and out. I think Jefferson's going to be the guy to go after. I don't know. Like, I don't love starting him today just because I think that Green Bay's got a better defense than they get credit for. But if that's what your 2 options are, I'm going with Jefferson and just hoping he gets enough volume.
I think that Jefferson is the right pick here as well. Perriman was kind of a flash in the pan last year. He really kind of performed towards down the stretch, but he's in a new offense, and honestly, an offense that's probably going to be rather stale most of the year. And we talked about Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is probably one of the worst quarterbacks to have in fantasy, in my opinion, this year. So hopefully he can buck that and actually be a good quarterback this year. But I just don't see Sam Darnold really producing in that way. Okay, questions are starting to pile up. Jamie, no last name. Thank you for the creativity there. So Jamie, no last name. Chiefs or Seahawks defense today? Chiefs already played, so technically there would be no question there.
Yeah. So if you play the Chiefs, then you played the Chief. But if you didn't, then Seahawks.
But moving forward, which one would you rather have?
Give me the Seahawks. I think that the Chiefs are going to get into too many shootouts, and I think that'll result in them giving up points. I think that they're a decent defense. But I think that the Seahawks have a lot of really opportunistic players, not so much in the pass rush, but their secondary is good. Jamal Adams is obviously one of the best safeties in the league. And then their linebackers make plays. KJ Wright's a decent pass cover guy. Bobby Wagner gets a lot of tackles. They're opportunistic in that way, and I think that they can scheme up pressure. And I think that they also keep scores lower. So even if they don't have a week where they rack up 6 or 7 sacks or generate 3 picks, they'll keep scores typically lower. So I think that that's why I would prefer the Seahawks here.
I agree. I like the addition of Jamal Adams too. I think that that's really going to take this defense to another level from where it was last year. I really like the Seahawks defense as a flexible option in terms of a back-end defense one throughout the year. So let's take the next question here. In Yahoo League, is keeping Deebo Samuel worth it in the long run? I'm not sure what Yahoo League means, but you should definitely keep Deebo Samuel on your roster just because he's IR. It's only 3 weeks this year, so IR is not condemning to the entire season. I definitely am keeping Deebo Samuel on my roster because he's going to be the wide receiver 1 when he comes back.
So I think what he's getting at is he's playing in a league on Yahoo versus on Sleeper, ESPN, or something else. I know this guy. So, yeah, Paul, a.k.a. Mav, I would keep Deebo. Is he on IR right now? Do you know?
Yes.
Okay, so he's only going to be out for 3 weeks. The hope was that he'd be back for week 1. Obviously, he wasn't, so he'd be back probably week 4. I'm rostering Deebo. When he's back, he's going to be the wide receiver 1 in the San Francisco offense, which isn't exactly super friendly to wide receivers, but Deebo will be the guy to own there. So I'm keeping Deebo. I know your league. You're going to dominate your league anyway, but I'd keep Deebo anyway.
If you absolutely have to drop him for a startable option, maybe we need to talk about the drafting ability there. But
no, his league's good. His team's good. Yes. I was there when he drafted it. It's a good team.
All right. So, Jason, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce your last name, even though my last name is just as crazy. So,
Zarotniak. That's how I'm going for it.
Half PPR, choose his flex. Deshaun Jackson, Chris Thompson, Zach Moss, or Deontay Johnson.
I am going with Djax today. I love all of the Eagles that are available today, both tight ends. Boston Scott, not Corey Clement, though, but I like Djax. I like Jalen Reagor. I like Carson Wentz. Just everybody you can start there. I like the defense, too. I think Djax gives you, since it's half PPR, I think that takes down Chris Thompson's value. He's the RB3 anyway. Zach Moss is the RB2. Devin Singletary's still the one there, even if they're splitting touches. Deontay Johnson's interesting. But I like Djax. He's got more pop to him. The Washington football team defense is not very good, and I think he's got a propensity for big plays today. So I think that, like we saw last year in week 1, he had 20 points or something stupid because he had 2 catches for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Djax is my play this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think it goes Deshaun Jackson, Deontay Johnson, Chris Thompson, Zach Moss in that order. So I'm not confident in that Jacksonville running back group yet, and I don't know what Zach Moss's role is going to be. If he does take on that traditional Frank Gore role that we saw last year, then great. Zach Moss will be a flexible option I would say most weeks, but some weeks he'll be a flexible option. And then Deshaun Jackson is to play this week. For all the reasons that Gage just stated, that wide receiver room, Jalen Reagor, even though he'll be playing today, is going to be banged up. So the possibility of him having to leave the game is up there.
He was a full participant in practice the last 2 days. And Deshaun Jackson has never stayed healthy in his career. So if you're going to knock Reagor for injury.
One of them's on the injury report right now. The other one's not. That's the only point I'm making there.
Jeez. This guy.
All right. So
next question, Janie again. We got Nyheim Hines or AJ Dillon. I know that this one's pretty easy for me, but who would you go with here?
AJ Dillon is not usable yet, in my opinion. We just don't know what they're going to do with him. I think as the season rolls on, he's going to be a viable option in terms of an RB2 or 3 for the week, but it's Nyheim Hines this week.
Perfect. That was exactly where I was going with everything. Moving on down here, who do you want to go with next?
Let's talk about this one. This is an interesting question to me. Does Miles Sanders still finish as a top 10 running back missing week 1?
If he only misses week 1, I say yes.
Absolutely. But my concern here is that it's going to keep him out longer than week 1. And that is the honest truth because he really seemed to go downhill injury-wise as the week went on. And so that's kind of my thought process there. He can miss next week and maybe the week after that. So depending on how severe it is, maybe they're playing it safe today. They are playing Washington, and so not necessarily their toughest competition. Maybe Washington proves us all wrong, but I don't think that's going to be the case. So maybe it's only week 1, but if he does end up missing weeks 2 and 3, then I don't think he does because it just becomes incredibly tough at that point.
I agree. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, if he only misses 1 week, I have a lot of faith in him. I think that they plan to use him heavily, so he'd be able to make up for missing 1 week. So it depends on how long this injury lasts there, Wicked.
Soft tissue injuries are never fun, but PJ Hunter asks Marvin Jones or Keenan Allen, PPR, Keenan Allen. Yep. Keenan Allen. I do love Marvin Jones this week if you are looking for a Galladay replacement, but Keenan Allen is a top 10 wide receiver possibly this week. So I'm going Keenan Allen.
Yeah, it's Keenan Allen for me as well. I had a debate that lasted about 2 days on Twitter a week ago with a guy, and he was talking about how Keenan Allen's underrated and this and that. I'm like, yeah, he is underrated. He's good. With Mike Williams dealing with that AC joint sprain, plus Tyrod Taylor can't throw it further than 3 yards down the field. I'm kidding, of course, but not really. Keenan Allen's going to get a lot of targets, and he's going to get a lot of volume. Marvin Jones, like Tyler said, big option this week. I have him in a couple of DFS lineups as well because his price is down. With Kenny G out, is Kenny G officially out? Do we know? Or is
yes. Sorry,
okay, you're good. So Kenny G officially out. Marvin Jones is the wide receiver 1. The Chicago Bears defense is really good, but I think that Jones is able to have the volume to make up for it. So Keenan Allen would be my start here, but Jones, if you need a flex option, if you're playing some DFS lineups, I like Jones a lot as well.
All right, next question then. Cam Newton or Wentz? The format here is irrelevant, but Cam Newton or Wentz?
It's Wentz for me. I like Cam Newton. I know that you really like him. Based on your model that you've shown me, you had him as like a top 7 tight end or so based on like projection.
Yeah,
I'm going with Wentz though. I like Wentz's weapons. Like even if he's got no receivers, he's got 2 top 10 tight ends in Ertz and Goddard. Boston Scott's a decent receiver out of the backfield. I think he's got the ability to have a big play. The secondary for Washington isn't very good. The only thing you got to worry about is how beat up his offensive line is. Obviously, Brandon Brooks is out. Andre Dillon, was it Andre Dillon? Or am I getting? I was like, I couldn't remember if I was getting him confused with the guy that's in Dalton Risner, who's in Denver. So his offensive line's a little beat up, but I still prefer Wentz here. Cam Newton is a guy that can give you really good late round value. Like if you drafted him at the end of your drafts as like your second quarterback, he could give you top 10 production this year, just depending on how they use him. If they force him to be a pocket passer, then that kind of limits him. But if they allow him to run and use his size and athleticism, he could be a really big, he could be this year's version of Lamar Jackson. Like, I understand that he's more well-known than Lamar was last year, but like he could be that guy that's you got him after round 10 and he's going to give you better than that value.
Yeah, in all my Superflex leagues, I've been grabbing Cam Newton to really put him on my bench and probably play him as a wide receiver. Man, how many positions are we going to make Cam Newton play? But as a quarterback too, in Superflex leagues, I think he's a very viable option. Startable, a must start in Superflex leagues this week. But it's Carson Wentz if it's a 1 quarterback league. So another quarterback question here: Kyler Murray or Aaron Rodgers?
I have gotten this one a couple of times this morning. I'm going to go with Rodgers. I like Kyler as a season long guy, but Rodgers just in a 1 week vacuum. He takes care of the ball. The Minnesota Vikings defense is overrated. Their corners are bad. Their pass rush is non-existent outside of Yannick, and Yannick's not going to play a full workload today. You have the safeties and you have the linebackers, but I don't have a ton of faith in them being able to slow down these receivers of Green Bay, even if their receivers have taken a step back over the last few years. Rodgers also takes care of the ball. It's a big thing. He doesn't turn the ball over. Kyler's playing against San Francisco, which will be able to get pressure on him and might force some turnovers. So for me, it's Rodgers, and I hope that his red zone work is turning into touchdowns rather than getting stopped at the 1 and then Aaron Jones punching the ball in. I love Aaron Jones, but if I can get Rodgers throwing a 2-yard fade to Alan Lazard or Devontae Adams, I'll take that all day.
Yeah, I love Kyler's long-term value as well. The 2020 outlook for him is fantastic, and I think he takes a big step in year 2. He is playing San Francisco, and as we all know, San Francisco is one of the best defenses in the league. I will give it to Kyler Murray. He's rather safe with the ball. He doesn't turn it over a lot, and so that's one of his biggest pluses. But in this conversation, I'm taking the better quarterback against the worst defense. I think it's a good question, but I do think it's Rodgers pretty easily. All right. So PJ Hunter with another question: Hayden, Hurst, or Gronk?
This makes me
I think
sad.
this is a format dependent question, in my opinion.
It is.
I think Gronk has higher chance of scoring a touchdown, but I think Hayden Hurst has the opportunity to have more catches. And so it really kind of depends on what
PPR versus standard.
Yeah, if you're playing PPR, I think it's Hayden Hurst. I think if it's standard, I think it's Gronk. But what are your thoughts here?
I don't love this at all. Like Hayden Hurst and Gronk are right next to each other in lineups. I had somebody ask me a little while ago who I would rather start Hayden Hurst versus, or like if I would rather start Gronk or start somebody else. And I like Gronk, obviously most talented tight end we've ever seen. Yes, most talented tight end we've ever seen over Tony Gonzalez, over everybody else that's ever been. But I don't know what his workload's going to be. Mike Evans being in or out obviously changes things. If Mike Evans is out today, I think I'm going with Gronk. I don't know about you, but I'm going with Gronk if I know for sure Evans is out. Just Hayden Hurst he's got decent speed. He's going to give you probably more touches PPR wise, but you also have to worry about for Gronk, OJ Howard and Cam Brate. They're both a thing. I would probably go with Hurst over Gronk just because I know that he's going to get volume. Like Matt Ryan trusts the tight end at all times. Hayden Hurst is a safe play. Gronk gives you a higher ceiling from a touchdown perspective, but Hurst is my choice here.
I think I go Hurst as well. We just don't know if Gronk is going to be the same Gronk that we're used to seeing. All reports out of campus that he's fine, obviously, but we won't know until games are played, and that's what's happening this week, thank God. So, but we'll start to have more information, and we can start making better informed decisions on these types of things. But I think it's Hayden Hurst here for me as well, especially in what could be a high-scoring matchup between Seattle and Atlanta. I think that would be the tiebreaker between the two. So, Austie Quick asks, should I pick up Watkins? I'm assuming Sammy Watkins, or let someone else in my league deal with the headache? Absolutely, let somebody else deal with that headache.
Yeah. Let somebody else deal with that headache there. It's Austin. It's supposed to be Austin. He just can't type. It's okay. He's not smart sometimes. But yeah, I would let somebody else deal with that headache. I'm sure you've drafted well enough to not necessarily need that extra wide receiver. I'll say this. If Watkins comes out and does this again next week, that might be a different story. But Watkins is going to get picked up this week. Somebody's going to make a dumb drop. They're going to drop a guy that they shouldn't. And then that's when you take advantage of their mistake. In fantasy, I'm a big fan of letting the league come to you. Like when I'm in drafts, I'm willing to let runs happen. I'll take advantage of the value elsewhere. So when somebody else makes that aggressive move to pick up Watkins thinking, oh, I just got a sneaky wide receiver one. No, you didn't. Tyreek Hill's still the wide receiver one there. Travis Kelce's still a thing. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to get, or Elaire as they made sure to pronounce it on Thursday night. So is going to get a lot of work. So I would say let somebody else deal with Watkins. You can't trust anybody in that Chiefs offense like past Hill in terms of wide receivers because DeMarcus Robinson was a dropped catch away from having a better game than Watkins did. So I would go with I would just let him stay on waivers.
Yeah, it's too early to tell again with Sammy Watkins, but I've been burned by Watkins over the years, and I'm personally not touching him no matter how many performances he puts up, because if you just go back and look at his history, it's stud and dud, and it just goes back and forth, and it's just I don't want to deal with that. So headache is the perfect way to describe it. I'm letting somebody else deal with it. Moving on here, I have a tough call. Marquise Brown against Cleveland or Tyler Boyd against the Chargers?
Ooh, that is a tough call. I've seen this question a few times this morning, and I actually had it in the same question earlier. I'm kind of split. It depends on what you need. Like if you're up against a juggernaut team and you don't think you're going to win, I would go with Marquise Brown. Cleveland's cornerback room is really beat up. Like it's Denzel Ward, and then I'm pretty sure they just promoted two random guys that they just signed. And Brown gives you a really high ceiling as a result. It only takes one play for him to have a big game, similar to Deshaun Jackson. Now, if you need a safer play that's going to just get you like 10 to 12 points, but he might not have the same high ceiling that Brown does, Tyler Boyd's your guy. Also, especially in PPR, I really like Boyd. I think he's gonna get a lot of work. There's a lot of people hyping up AJ Green, but Joe Burrow doesn't really do the whole down the field thing, which is where AJ Green really makes his bread. Boyd works close to the line of scrimmage. He's that slot guy. So Boyd, if you need safe play, Brown, if you need a ceiling play.
I can't agree more. It's really a lineup dependent question. If you're the rest of your lineup is a Michael Thomas, Devontae Adams core, and you feel really safe about your floor, then throw Marquise Brown in your flex. I think that's a perfect move there. But if you need some more security and you just need to get 10 points across the board from all your guys, I think Tyler Boyd's the guy. Fact or fiction? Odell sees the end zone more this year.
Fact.
Exactly.
That's just he was dealing with that. What was it? A stomach or like abdominal injury all year last year?
That was a hip or something like that. It was something in that region, and basically it made it incredibly painful for him to play. And he played anyway. Another year with Baker, another year in the offense, another year healthy. I think Odell kind of starts to return to form.
Yeah, and he only caught 4 touchdowns last year. I just think due to regression, and he's the best. He's the best receiver on his team. Like Jarvis Landry, I love Jarvis Landry, but Jarvis Landry is not on the same level as OBJ. Austin Hooper is an interesting guy. David Njoku is athletic, but OBJ is the best receiver on this team, and I think that he's just going to see the end zone more this year than 4 times that he did last year. Like factor in this. So his previous low in touchdowns was 3, and that was in a year that he played 4 games. Even in 2018, where he played 12 games, he caught 6 touchdowns. So him only catching 4 last year was just – he's due for positive regression just because he's so good down there. Like he's not the biggest guy, but he just knows how to – he can go up and he gets the ball. He's only 5'11", and yet he catches touchdowns like he's 6'4". So I think he definitely sees the end zone more this year. So fact for me.
Yeah, I have OBJ in a lot of places because the value really fit with what I was doing in my drafts this year. In that 4th round area, 5th round in some places, he was really falling to me. And so I have a lot of OBJ shares, more than I probably ever thought I would have. But that's because I do believe he returns to value. There's obviously the inherent injury risk with him and everything else about him talking about not loving football anymore. And so all that stuff kind of has accumulated into what has become the current OBJ. But at the same time, I think that this is the year that he returns to form. Let's move on, though. Let's see here. So Austin had a follow-up question to the Kyler Murray discussion with Aaron Rodgers. He said 2 of Kyler's best games last year were against San Francisco, and now they have DeAndre Hopkins. Does that change anything for you?
Not really for me. I understand that 2 of his best games were against San Francisco last year, but I'm still leaning with Rodgers, especially because if you factor in like this air quality thing, like Tevin Coleman might not even play today. He's got the sickle cell trait, which is something that's holding him out. I don't think that the air quality is going to be great. I think this is going to be like those games that we used to see the Chargers play where it was like super smoky and like there was just like it looked like there was a fog on the field at 6 p.m. So I'm still going to lean with Rodgers here. I think he's a safer play. I also think he just gives you like a higher floor. I think Murray's a good player. I love him for season long, but I don't really love him for just this week alone. So
I actually think that their floors are rather equivalent this week. I think that the floors are pretty much the same this week because Kyler Murray does offer that rushing value that Rodgers doesn't. But I think Rodgers' upside is better, and I think that's probably why I'm leaning Rodgers. So another quarterback question, though. Roethlisberger, Brady, or Ryan?
Matt Ryan, all day. Book it.
Yep. I love Matt Ryan this week. He's going to be a top 10 quarterback play. I
love Matt Ryan, period. Like, Matt Ryan, period. Good fantasy quarterback. Like, not just this week.
We just did a draft. We just did that draft for the Pack-A-Day League, and I took him in, like, the 9th round, and I'm super happy with that. You know, yeah. It was, like, the quarterback 10 off the board, but, like, I love Matt Ryan this year. Great value, and it's an even-numbered year, so he's going to be good, obviously.
That is perfect science, yeah. I don't think you've ever had better analysis than that.
All right. So
I have a question actually from a fan. So this guy was wanting to know. I don't have him in the chat here, but I will be getting back to him later. He had OBJ in his flex as of right now, and Hunter Henry's in his lineup. So is Tyler Lockett. Do you switch out any of OBJ or Hunter Henry or Tyler Lockett for Waller or Edelman? No, I don't.
Leave
it as is. So OBJ and the flex. I know I like Lockett. Lockett, I think, is a top 10 play for me this week. And then I was between.
Well, did you see that Jimmy Smith, the leading corner for the Ravens, other than I guess Marlon Humphrey? So one of the leading corners. For the Ravens.
I was like Marlon Humphrey's the guy.
But one of the starting corners for the Ravens is going to be out. So no Marlon Humphrey no Jimmy Smith this week.
But if I remember correctly, wasn't Jimmy Smith the one that they were transitioning to safety anyway?
Yes, but one of those key defensive backs is going to be out for the Ravens.
I was like, because Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey are the 2 starters for them. Did you forget that Marcus Peters is a thing?
No, I didn't forget Marcus Peters was a thing, but I think Jimmy Smith is still number 2 or 3 on the depth chart.
Gotcha.
I mean, I guess I consider 3 corners to be starting, considering most NFL defenses run nickel now.
Well, I mean, so Jimmy Smith is actually their corner 4 because if you go like 2 outside guys and a slot, Tavon Young's their slot guy. And he's actually, when he's on the field, he's a good slot guy. So Jimmy Smith would be their 4th guy. I'm not trying to boost up OBJ or tear him down or anything. I'm just like trying to give you like the most accurate information here. But yeah, I was curious because that debate was kind of tough for me. Darren Waller against Carolina. Carolina's not necessarily good, especially on defense. They invested 7 draft picks and their defense is still bad. Like their best player is probably Shaq Thompson on the defense or Brian Burns. And then Trey Boston continues to find the guy to deal longer than 1 year. So
probably Brian Burns or maybe even Derek Brown, even though it's his first year.
I can't put Derek Brown there yet. But that's
just how bad the Panthers defense is, though. I think that's what it's really speaking to. Yeah, Short is still there, but
KK Short, yeah. But I'd say Shaq Thompson's good. Shaq Thompson's a good player.
Okay, we're gonna move on though. Okay, let's cover some duds for the week. So, who is your dud? The guy that you're saying is gonna dud this week.
I have Stephon Diggs ranked really highly, but he's my dud for the week. I don't have a ton of faith in Buffalo keeping this game close. I think that they're going to get up big early because Adam Gase is a bad coach. So Stephon Diggs is my dud because I think that he's going to just not see as much volume as he might in weeks where they score more points. So that's who my dud is for the week. I think that he could have a big game just with 1 or 2 big catches because that's just the type of player he is. But I think that he's going to be the guy that people are like, yeah, he's going to be really good this week, and he's just not.
So Jason has corrected me and said that Jimmy Smith is active. I could have swore he was inactive, but I guess he's active. So it doesn't matter. Everything we just talked about is pointless.
Yep. He's questionable, so he might just be officially active.
Okay. So then my dud of the week is Antonio Gibson. I think that he's not going to come anywhere close to realizing the value that people are thinking he's going to provide. There's going to be no rushing value to little rushing value. I think that we are way, way underestimating the fact that he only had 35 college carries in his career. So you can't just take a guy like that and throw him at running back. It's going to take some time. The upside is definitely there. At worst, he becomes a possible flex option with the receiving value. But if you're expecting him to come in and really support your lineup, I would look elsewhere.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Antonio Gibson thing. I've not really been in on the hype of him all offseason, even after the correct cutting of Darius Geis and then AP leaving. I'm still out. I need to see it before I can believe it type deal. There's too many running backs there. They're playing a team that's really good at defending the run despite having no linebackers in Philly. So I'm going to pass on Gibson this week. And if I get bit by him, so be it. But I think that what's going to happen is everybody else is going to get bit by it. I'm going to laugh all the way to the bank with it.
That's exactly how I feel. And I see some of these trades going down. It's like Antonio Gibson for like Christian McCaffrey and stuff like that. Like Antonio Gibson, like a couple other small pieces for Christian McCaffrey. And I'm like, I'll give him McCaffrey all day. I'm not buying any of the
I've seen those deals too. And I'm like, I want to be in those leagues because I want to play with people that aren't good at this game.
I sometimes feel like that I play in leagues like that too, where the guys I'm playing with are just too smart. So, all right, let's move on though. So we did dud. So who's going to be your biggest sleeper for this week?
My biggest sleeper for this week, let me get it, is Eric Ebron from Pittsburgh. Eric Ebron was being drafted as tight end 20, give or take, like a couple spots depending on where you were drafting at in redraft. I don't understand why. This guy is 2 years removed or just 1 year removed from a top 5 tight end finish. He's a super athlete. He's a great red zone threat. Here's the thing. Vance McDonald last year in the same offense was being drafted as tight end 8 and then didn't do anything all year long. Eric Ebron's a better athlete. He's a better receiver. He may not be as good of a blocker as Vance, but he's a better fantasy asset. I think that against a New York Giants defense that has a really good front 4, but has nothing on the back end, they spent so much money on linebackers and they still don't have any good ones, especially in terms of coverage. Blake Martinez is a good enough run defender, good at getting tackles, but Eric Ebron's a better athlete and all this other stuff. So I think that he's got a really big chance for a good week this week. Like people are going to sleep on him. And, you're going to get value from a tight end that you probably picked up off the waiver wire.
I think Ebron's a fine play. I mean, his only problem has ever really been drops. And he was a huge red zone guy in Indy. I was actually kind of surprised to see them let him go because maybe they just love Jack Doyle that much. But he was really productive there with Andrew Luck in 2018. 2019, not so much for apparent reasons. That offense was just lackluster as a whole.
Yeah,
but I do like Ebron. Yes. So my sleeper of the week is going to be James White. Good old reliable. I don't think that a lot of people are really clamoring to get him into their lineups, but they probably should look at him as a flex. I've seen him mentioned a couple times in sit-start questions, and I've almost always answered James White. He's going against Miami. That New England backfield is a mess. Cam Newton's going to be suffering from Christian McCaffrey withdrawals. I think that honestly, James White is one of the best plays you can have this week in terms of building an entire lineup. Okay, so we do have another question here from Wicked Roki, who's been having great questions for us. What rookie wide receiver is in the best position for a relative fantasy football season? I think it's Jalen Reagor, easily. Bryan Edwards is a close second for me, but I think it is Jalen Reagor and then Bryan Edwards in terms of who's in the best position to succeed.
This is a tough one. I think that a lot of rookie wide receivers are in good positions. I know a lot of people, especially one Austin Quick in the chat, is going to say CeeDee Lamb just because. But here's the issue with Dallas and CeeDee Lamb. He's still wide receiver 3 there. Michael Gallup's good. Amari Cooper, really good. Blake Jarwin's good. Zeke, great running back. One of the top 5 running backs in the league. And he's not going to get as much work as he should. I like Jalen Reagor. The issue for me with Jalen Reagor is when is Alshon Jeffrey going to come back? Because when Jeffrey comes back, he's going to be a thing. And I think that Reagor would then pass Djax on the depth chart, but I think that he might not get as much volume, especially with them having 2 good tight ends and Miles Sanders being a good good receiving running back. So I'm going to go with Bryan Edwards here. I think he's the starter. Tyrell Williams is out. And Austin Quick's going to love that because I was down on Bryan Edwards throughout the pre-draft process just because people were touting him as like a top 5 receiver in this class, and he just wasn't that. He was not. Moving on.
We'll talk about this on Friday.
Yeah, we'll talk about this later. I think Bryan Edwards is probably the guy that's got the most fantasy relevant season just because he's going to be the top wideout for that team. I think Henry Ruggs has got a really good ceiling. And if he just breaks a couple big plays a big play every other week or so, he can have fantasy relevance. But I think Edwards has got a really safe season ahead of him. Like he's going to get probably 6 to 8 targets every week. He'll catch 4 to 5 of them and then have 50 yards, and he'll catch a touchdown once every few weeks. So I think Bryan Edwards is actually who I would play there. And then I would put Justin Jefferson as the next guy because with Stephon Diggs out, there's a lot of targets up for grabs there. All Jefferson has to do is stay on the damn field, and he's going to get 8 targets every week. That's all he has to do. And because BC Johnson isn't passing him, Adam Thielen's a thing, but Justin Jefferson's the future wide receiver of this offense. So I would say Bryan Edwards 1 and then Justin Jefferson 2. So
if you had to play one this week, who are you playing?
This week, Bryan Edwards. Carolina.
Reagor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Here's why. Have you guys seen the Panthers depth chart?
We just got done talking about this defense. It's pretty bad overall.
Their number 1 corner is Dante Jackson, who has not done anything since he has came into the league. After that, you know what? Do me a favor. Name the second cornerback on this roster.
Is Corn Elder still a thing?
Corn Elder's a thing, but he is not listed as the number 2.
Okay. Then I am drawing a blank. I'm sure I know who it is. I'm drawing a blank.
It's Troy Pride.
Who?
Troy Pride Jr. Exactly. See?
Oh, I thought he was a safety. That's wow.
He's listed as a corner on this roster. So that's exactly why I'm starting Bryan Edwards if I have to start a rookie this week. I think that he's a safe play. The reviews all offseason have been Bryan Edwards is great. He's the next coming of Jerry Rice, whatever.
Okay, I wasn't that high on him.
Okay, no, you haven't been that high on him, but I've seen people going crazy on him. So Bryan Edwards is the guy I'm starting this week if I have to start a rookie wide receiver, just because he's going to give you safe production nonstop.
I love Edwards' long-term outlook. I think I'm going Reagor this week, though. But let's begin to wrap up here. We're almost done. So if you have a final question, get it in. Did you want to go over let's go over our biggest surprise for the week?
Biggest surprise of the week, David Montgomery is going to finish top 12 at the position. He's dealing with a groin injury. which gives me some pause, but I think that he's going to be able to play through it. There's no competition at this position for him. Tariq Cohen is only going to catch passes. He's never going to run the ball. And Tariq Cohen can't even catch passes that go, like he averaged like 5 yards per catch last year. It was not good. Cordero Patterson's a thing, but he's more of a gadget player than anything else. I think Montgomery's healthy. The Detroit front is bad. Like they have, like they lost Snacks Harrison. Their like Trey Flowers is stout. They have a bunch of stout guys, but they don't have anybody that gets penetration. They just stop at the line, and then they have no linebackers. Like Gerard Davis is still there. Is it Jelani Tavai, or am I getting him confused with the other like guy that's got a weird name?
No, you're right.
Okay, so they have no linebackers that I'm afraid of. Jeffrey Okuda's out, and Jeffrey Okuda is probably one of their best defensive players. Just this Lions defense is not good, and like Jamie Collins is there, but he's not going to do anything. So I think that he finishes top 12 at the position this week. I think that he falls into the end zone at least once. He's a good receiver. Like he put on some really impressive plays last year receiving wise. So that's my surprise of the week because I've seen people ranking him outside their top 24 at the position. And I don't know how you can do that. Just based on volume, he's going to be top 24.
I agree with you. I think I had him inside my top 24. I know you did, but I think he's an RB1 this week. He's a guy that I've been stashing in a lot of places because he's been so undervalued by a lot of people who went and paid for him last year. And so David Montgomery is a guy who's probably going to be one of those guys on the championship rosters, I think, at the end of the year, if he can stay healthy, because I think he's going to be a really, really good deep bench option to make your bench deeper. And then also he will probably be startable in most weeks and most formats. So let's move on to my biggest surprise of the week. And my surprise of the week is actually going to be the Bengals offense. I like the Bengals offense this week against the Chargers. The over-under is set at like 41, I think, for this game. But I would like to smash the over on that, and I'm taking the Bengals offense and some pieces of the Chargers offense. You can start Eckler, Henry, and Keenan Allen. I think that's about it. But the Cincinnati offense, I think that they could have a QB1 in Joe Burrow. They could have an RB1 in Joe Mixon, and they could have a wide receivers 2 and 3 in AJ Green and Tyler Boyd.
Which one's which though?
Boyd would be wide receiver 2.
Okay, I was like, let's see if he makes the right call here.
Yeah, so I think that they could have 4 pretty good fantasy options this week, and I really like them against the Chargers.
Yeah. All right. For those of you that play DFS, I'm going to give you a little bit of extracurricular stuff. Tyler, unfortunately, lives in Arizona where DFS isn't allowed. Sucks to be him. These are all DK prices. There's no FanDuel because FanDuel doesn't like me here in Indiana for whatever reason. I'm giving you a few like value plays this week. Boston Scott at 4,800 is really good running back value. Like if you're trying to stack expensive wide receivers like Chris Godwin, Devontae Adams, Michael Thomas, if you're really wanting to spend up, Boston Scott allows you to do that while still giving you a wide receiver 1. His price is down because Miles Sanders was just announced as out, so they don't adjust prices because prices come out on Monday. Kendrick Bourne is another interesting wide receiver option. He's $5K, which I think is a little expensive, but he's only got to get 15 points to hit value. For those of you that are new to DFS, you're looking to get guys that'll triple, like they'll triple their price. So for 5K, 15 points, that's what you're looking for. And then if you're looking for a cheap stack, I like Dwayne Haskins and Terry McLaurin. There's like Steven Sims is a thing, but there's not really any other receivers to work. Like I don't really trust any receivers outside of Terry McLaurin here. And Dwayne Haskins at only 5K. For reference, that makes him cheaper than Tua, who won't play today. That makes him cheaper than Justin Herbert, who won't play. Nick Foles, not going to play. Jarrett Stidham, not going to play. Jacoby Brissett, Chase Daniel, all these guys. And you're getting a starting quarterback. Dwayne Haskins wasn't great last year, but he's a safe player. He can take care of the ball well. His offensive line is decent. I think he's better than Daniel Jones this week, and Daniel Jones is more expensive. So if you're looking for a cheap stack, which if you're playing DFS, you should always be looking to stack. For reference, everybody that won the Millie Maker last year, that's $1 million to first place, they had a stack. They had a stack or a stack and stack in one. So if you're looking for a cheap stack this week, I like Dwayne Haskins and Terry McLaurin because McLaurin's only 5,600, which is really cheap for a wide receiver 1. A couple other values, Jalen Reagor at 43 and Brian Edwards at 4,200. Those are really cheap plays that I think that you're getting a lot of value there. So, and Reagor's got big playability. Brian Edwards has got a safe floor that we've talked about all afternoon. So what is that? 12.6 points is all he would need to achieve value. And I think he's got a potential to go above that as well.
That's great. And yeah, I wish I could offer more insight on DFS. I can certainly answer your questions. I think this guy's better than this guy, or what is your value? Unfortunately, the prices are going to be a little bit out of my range. Thanks, Arizona. So with that, we're going to sign off for the day. The chat was super active, which is awesome. So thank you. Keep that coming. Tune in next week to give us more of your questions. Tune in on Friday to the Game on Wisconsin Twitter for the podcast link for Gage and I, where we will cover all 16 matchups for the week, other than Thursday Night Football. So 15 matchups, but we will cover every single matchup and give our thoughts on every single game. So tune in on that. Tune into that on Friday. Our rankings drop on Wednesday on Game on Wisconsin, so check those out. But until next time, just stay safe and go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go.